have been, what it should be, what it might be, but the numbers are very interesting to go. I'm in Southern California and there's big numbers out here that are going to be facing eviction. I don't know what it is. You guys are in what, Massachusetts?
Yep.
And I don't know what the numbers are going to be.
Michigan.
Right. Massachusetts is pretty tenant friendly, and I think I don't know if we've had a stay on the ban, but it is expected to be extended.
Because the challenge becomes this. I mean, because we're in a world that only looks at exceptions to the rule anyways, because those are going to be the things that are going to make it onto the video, make it onto YouTube, and make it onto you're going to get the person that took their retirement money and invested in real estate, and they have tenants and they're dependent upon those tenants, and they're 83 years old and they haven't gotten their tenants to pay them, and you're going to have the 83-year-old lady on there, and that's an exception, but too bad you got to deal with the exception of the 83-year-old lady who put all of her nest egg a year and a half ago into it and was told, no, hey, look, all you have to do is collect things. The government's not going to step in and say, the government's not going to step in and jack you. The government's there to help you. You're 83 years old and you put your life savings into real estate. And we protect our real estate here and we're going to save you. And so what'll be interesting is to see, what do we do with the exceptions that are going to happen in 6 months? What do you tell the person that's 83 that doesn't get her money coming in anymore to pay things? Does she get jacked and get her credit score hammered because she can't get the people to pay? And who eats it? Who eats it at those levels is the interesting question. Like, what's going to happen? You
bring up a really, really valid point, which is there is absolutely a demographic of landlords out there that are not necessarily the victims here, but are definitely being like there are landlords here who are not actively part of the problem and are still suffering as part of the eviction crisis, which isn't. And what I'm trying to say here is there's two different types of landlords. There's what you described, and then there's companies with 10 buildings with 30 tenants each that don't maintain them.
Yeah, it's about 60-40, right? Like about 40% is small.
I don't know. I don't know the statistics, but that sounds about right.
I looked it up this morning. It's about 4 and 10 are own only a few properties.
4 and 10 are owned by large companies or individuals?
No, 6 out of 10 is owned by 60% of landlords are larger landlords.
Okay.
40% are smaller, usually single family homes that they're renting out or multifamily homes that they're renting out.
And I just want to say that in my experience, within both of those groups, you're going to have the good ones and the bad ones.
Yeah,
and it would be so nice if it was just the good ones and the bad ones, because then you could just just kill the bad ones.
I mean,
there's a whole array of good and bad, trying and not trying, different strategies that are working or aren't working.
There's a lot of things that are actively done to reduce the number of bad landlords in general. At least, in Massachusetts. I don't know about other states. In Massachusetts, there's a lot of tenant protections in place and a lot of things that are done to make sure that landlords are being responsible. However, like, any large corporation, the larger companies know exactly where those lines are and just toe the hell out of it. Like that's all that's necessary. The system is not, it's designed to be forgiving for both sides, but it doesn't matter. There was the Aurora a few years ago sold, rooming house, record-breaking number of health code violations. There was no this person wasn't forced to sell. They got tired of dealing with the health department. They weren't told you have to fix this. They were just told we're going to keep sending you notices and potentially charge you. But that's what it comes down to is if you have enough money, you don't actually have to care about what the government tells you to some level or another. And a lot of these landlords are operating from that position of we've got enough money that we don't actually have to care about people.
Donald
right.
Trump.
I mean, there's that old line, right? That a crime punishable by a fine is a crime only for the poor.
Sorry, say again.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, guy. What is the percentage of people that get to renegotiate with their landlords on the business side right now, where you guys are? Like, what percentage of landlords for business properties are saying nobody's having to renegotiate with us at all. We got 100% occupancy, no problem on the small business owner occupancy. Because here it seems like that's another really big problem for business things. Like it seems like they have.
I think the trajectory that I'm seeing right now, I am not seeing the renegotiations in my small circle yet, but I'm seeing the vacations. People are vacating and then replacing them with who, and then the who is the renegotiation. You know,
looks
so
like
this guy was paying
Amazon
$20
is moving into our neighborhood thanks to that.
Yep.
Yeah, I have only anecdotal things from my part of the country, which is mostly, you know, that businesses are failing at an astronomical rate this year, and landlords are not necessarily helping that in any way. But I mean, also they're also hurting too in this way. So, you know, a lot of these are small businesses too. So that, yeah, it's kind of it's a very large problem that could be solved, not in an easy way. And I don't want to say this, it's not flippant by saying this, but direct payments would have solved this problem. Because the issue here is that people can't stay solvent. And now these landlords, because they're not getting paid, they have to go through these processes to evict people or not renegotiate rent or to push that because they have mortgages to pay too. Right, or they have loans to pay. So really, I mean, there's a bigger solver of this that could have avoided where we're at.
So there's some weird feedback there. Okay, right. So the concept of like who is the big daddy that owns everything? That's the helpful parent that helps everyone out and doles the land out. It does exist, and it's the Fed. Right? Because it's the owners, as you just said, Sean, the owners are not the owners. The owners have a mortgage and the bank is the owner. But the bank, where do they get their money from? It is from the Fed, you know, and who runs the show is the Fed.
So spoiler alert, regardless of whether or not your landlord is evil, it's the government that is evil. Yes. I'm on board with this one.
No, I didn't say that. I would never speak out against you, Mr. Fed. If you're hiring, I know 4 intelligent individuals who will gladly take over the world on your behalf.
I mean, but the government is essentially a reflection of us, right? So the pressures that we can put on the government really is the government is an evil. It's the forces that are put upon government, and that the power inequities that are caused through it. That's the evilness there. It's not necessarily the function of government.
The government is just full of people, and people are flawed.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and even the government, they're taking, you know, when they adjust the rates, they're taking bets, right? Because it's not just an up and down. Like you lower the rates and the prices go down. You know, you right. Lower the rates and the prices could go up or down, right? Depending on the market reaction. So, you know,
yeah, I mean,
just to say that, I mean, it's fun to say that the government's evil, and sometimes you can point out and just say they did that. That's freaking evil. But this is, you know, the fact that they are the big daddies. Jackson, you just went green. Is unfortunately not another. We still don't have an evil that we can just chop off and, you know.
Yeah, I mean,
if you turned green again.
Oh, I did?
Yeah.
Oh. All right, I'm just going to go mute here. There we go.
You good. But come back on green. Come back on green. I like seeing your face.
It does seem to come back to what is there to do about it, and honestly, it does come back to the government to hold people accountable.
For what?
Because it's not. I mean, it's my job to hold my tenants accountable, but if they aren't, then the next step is the government, and vice versa. If I'm not holding up to my responsibilities as a landlord, if I'm abusing my responsibilities as a landlord, or abusing my power as a landlord, then it's up to the government to stop me. So, I mean, it does come back to some level of, if not enforcement, regulation or accountability. Accountability is where this all comes down to.
It's interesting when you talk about accountability. It's always super curious to go, well, here's the one change we can make, and it's not going to jack anybody. Because normally there's something that's well, here's how we're going to do that. Here's how we're going to impose that. But the only people that are going to be given the attention are going to be the small minorities that scream the loudest about it.
I mean, yes, but that is how it works. But that's not how, like, that's not working. That is, like, we are paying attention to the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. If people are loud enough about things, they get a response. But that doesn't. That is how things happen, but that's not the process working. Like, yes, you're right. That question should be asked and answered, but then that question being answered and then addressing the squeaky wheel are two separate things that do get mixed up and do distort the process. I agree. That's where we should be is, well, what is the alternative? Where do we go? Not where do we go from here, because that's a whole separate problem, but let's pretend that we were redesigning this from scratch. Let's not say, because that's the thing. We're not trying to not fuck over people actively. People are actively getting fucked over. They're like, inaction is not the solution to that.
That was deep. Just want to say that. Yep. Right. What we have in any sector of life, in anything going on, somebody's getting fucked over. So to change the system, right? I know. In generality, somebody's always getting fucked over somewhere in the process. That's kind of a piece of the puzzle. So if we're going to change things and go into the uncomfortableness of changing things, yeah, somebody else is probably going to get fucked over in the meantime, and it's probably the person who wasn't getting fucked over before.
Well, fucked over is perspective.
Not that the goal is just fucking over.
I think it's okay to mess people over, but if you're going to mess people over, say, look, we're messing you over, and you just have to take it and shut up and take it. You don't do that ahead of time. Here's the point on that. Let me finish this point, because just say, look, you're going to get jacked. And we're going to totally ignore you. And we need to for the good of this bigger group of people. And we need you to shut up about it. And not only we need you to shut up about it, we need to pretend you don't exist. And you have to be okay with us pretending that you don't exist. Here's an example. So I'll give you an example in another area.
Okay, but I'm reframing it for you after
that. So an example is, here's how things work. And this is going to be more controversial, so we can have more fun, right? Because we gotta have to have a little bit of fun. So this is a little more controversial.
Yeah, please start up.
Like when there's a debate, like between the president and Joe Biden, and he says, nobody lost their health care plan. Nobody lost their health care plan. Just say, hey, look, we want to do this. But we did jack 6 million people over, because I was one of them, and mine went up 5x. So just say, look, we need to jack people over. We need to pretend they don't exist. Right. We're not going to let you be part of the conversation.
Right. Please, people get it. Just be honest and then take the punch
say,
back.
Look, we're going to jack you, and we don't want you to have a voice. Just say it. We want to jack you. We don't want you to have a voice.
Well, you can leave off the second part. We're going to jack you. Or we just jacked you.
Honest and say, look, we have to pretend. Steve, people like you didn't.
So I've got an alternative perspective here. Neither of you are actually getting jacked. It was set up wrong in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
It was set up inefficiently and poorly, and it was a mistake. You were benefiting from it significantly. You and everyone who looks like you for the past millennium, whatever. We're about to fix that. Not sorry for the inconvenience. This is the way it should have been from the beginning.
Right. I mean, again, another line is that, like, equality in the face of privilege looks like oppression.
Mm. Wow. Is that what you said before?
No.
Oh,
what I said before was that a law that is punishable by a fine is only a crime to the poor.
Yeah.
Mm.
Because if you could pay your way out of every fine, then it's not really a crime.
Jackson, please come on every podcast with quotes for the rest of the time.
So what's a specific example of a change that you guys think can be made that's going to not hurt people and put them in a closet and say, look, you don't get to have a voice on this, and we're going to mess you up? What's a specific change that can be made going forward that you go, no, we're going to let everybody have a voice in it, and if you're the 6 million out of the country that get messed over, we're at least going to listen to you.
Right, and that's why the big question is land ownership or real estate ownership evil? And that might be the wrong question, so don't take it too literally, but maybe a better question, that's the one that gets views, by the way. But the one that doesn't get views, but the right question is, and Dave, you've asked this a couple times now, what is, not how do we get there, but what's the right answer? Wiping it all to zero, clearing your mind, what's the right answer for human beings to divide space on planet Earth? Question mark.
So this isn't the answer, but it's a problem we're going to run into, and I want to stay ahead of time. Right now, the incentive for someone to buy a building and turn it into a place that hundreds of people can live, and when all those people who are about to move in there can barely afford the rent, could definitely not afford the building or the renovations, but there are people who are going to be making homes for them. It's worth pointing out, what is the incentive for that right now? Massive amounts of profit over a long period of time.
Or even a small amount of profit. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because the first part of that you laid out was that people who could not otherwise do this on their own. Listen, if you left me alone in a forest, okay, how long would it take me to build a nice condo with a poured concrete basement and shingles on the roof? Do you know what I mean? It wouldn't. I would die however many years down the line, and that wouldn't happen. If it was the four of us, I don't think it would happen. I think we'd have a real sweet tree house, a log cabin, maybe 10 years down the line, and one of us would have died of starvation and cold, right? So definitely there's an aspect to this question.
Thank you for your donation.
There's an aspect to this of one hand cleans the other. Now, it may or may not be profitable to that person. That's the second part of your equation.
But how do we make this equitable for everyone?
I would be very curious to see if David has if you've thought about the land value tax as a potential solution to this. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but so this is there's a few countries that have this in place, and essentially it changes the way property taxes work. So property taxes now are based off of an assessment of the improvements and the facilities that are built on top of the land, right? And so if you have a skyscraper that has tons of value, then you would have a large property tax, right? Versus a bungalow, right?
Yep.
But what a land value tax does is instead values the location of the property, not the actual property built on top of it. So all of the improvements that are made upon it, everything like that, don't actually come into play. What actually comes in play is its location relative to other occupied land, to public works, to city centers, things like that. And so it instead changes it from a land speculation kind of deal into more of a societal development approach.
So how would that discourage? Wouldn't that increase the profit of land ownership? Like, wouldn't people just build places they could rent out more units to in places with more affordable zip codes? Like, isn't that the equivalent of buying in Worcester instead of Boston 5 years ago?
Worcester's better prices.
Potentially, but the thing is that it is also based on where it is, right? So it's not necessarily like all land is equal, right? Necessarily, it's kind of complicated. That's why I kind of asked if you had thought about it before.
I haven't, but I don't understand how it. Yeah. Like, I don't see the. I guess I don't understand which ways this would affect landlords to mitigate power dynamic issues or regulate ethics.
Well, in large part, it would stop people from kind of swooping in to a particular location, buying up property, fixing it over, and renting it out at a much higher rate. The thing is, it's more of a structural thing than it is a fix, right, for a particular.
Okay, so you're saying if things were started out this way, how would it have gone? Yeah,
that or if it's even moved in this direction, right? So the idea is that it would essentially, part of the reason why rent is a problem in this country is because rents have not gone up or wages have not gone up with the rate of inflation of rents, right?
So do you think that, like, landowners are being charged more, so they're raising rent, so that rent is going up, and people are no longer like. Is that where like you think this is on the how much it costs to own property?
No.
Okay,
I think it's in part that, but also it's part of it is also the drive to improve, right? And so, structural improvements, things like that don't necessarily are not owed improvements, right? But things that are aesthetic improvements, things that bring more value to the property, bring up the property value, right? Then you can charge a higher rent, right, for that. And I'm not talking about small mom and pop landlords here. This is
You're saying if somebody buys a property for $100 and they realize if they put in a $5 new kitchen sink that they can charge $20 rent instead of 10, which is
correct,
a doubling of the rent.
Yeah,
so
this is
for the price of a freaking bathroom.
Yeah,
all the tenants get screwed
I don't
over.
think so I could be wrong, but what it costs me in property taxes, the only way that is relevant to what my tenants are paying in rent is if it is like next year I'm going to have to look at exactly how much my property taxes have gone up since I bought the building, and I'm probably going to have to raise some good tenants rent just because it's costing me a lot more.
Right.
But when I bought the property and when I'm looking at property next year, I don't think property tax is going to be a major thing. It is just it is business wise it goes under COG, cost of goods. It doesn't matter. It does matter, but it is a number I factor in. And then so long as I'm in real estate to retire by like 35 or 45. But I also have found symbiotic relationships make sense, and win-win situations are better for everyone. So I'm not being a scumbag about it, but you have to realize the reason this makes so much sense is because the return, I can spend the next 15 years paying a mortgage, but someone else is paying that mortgage for me. I am paying the mortgage, but I'm collecting rent, and it's really not easy, but it's you can think about it. And so long as rent plus rent equals mortgage plus tax plus utilities plus whatever, then I'm good for 15 years. So that's me, because I'm not trying to make profit off these people. I'm in it for the long game. I care about having good tenants that are going to stay there for as long as possible and complain about as few things as possible while paying rent on time. So that's where my priority is, and it's easy to make that situation work. But property tax is not a detractor in purchasing property. It's not a.
It is. Worcester commercial, my specialty. By the way, don't forget this podcast brought to you by John Snyder Real Estate. Buy all your real estate in Worcester and beyond with John Snyder, specializing in Worcester commercial, where the property taxes one of the issues that you might hear of in Worcester is the two tax system, or however they say it. And you have the commercial properties have a much higher tax rate than the residential properties. And it's a detractor for people who want to buy commercial properties and they love Worcester because Worcester's so on fire, and then they want to get into the commercial side of things and they're like, screw that. Or, what happens is that if you have a big tenant, let's say they're going to take this gigantic ass warehouse, Amazon's going to come in, for example, right? And they're going to rent the Greendale Mall, this massive, property. What usually happens in a lease like that is that the tenant pays for everything. They are completely responsible for all bills, including taxes and freaking everything else, on their massive 10-year lease with 2 options to continue for another 10 years each, right? So a 30-year lease. And so is Amazon, forget the owners, but is Amazon or any large tenant going to want to rent their gigantic warehouse in Worcester, where the property taxes are insanely high? Or are they just going to go right next door to Shrewsbury, where there's an equal size warehouse and the property taxes are half of that? So that it definitely changes. It definitely changes with the decisions people make.
But that's commercial. I mean, it is a huge difference. Commercial is business. That, it makes a difference. But they're looking at their bottom line. They don't have the option to they know what they're coming, and the solution for that problem. Let me put it this way: their facility in Shrewsbury in theory, could be just as efficient. Like we've got the USPS right over there. Shrewsbury could, if done properly, be almost as great as in Worcester, especially if it was on an edge or near 290 and 190. They could totally do it and make it work. My tenants are paying me as much as they are because I'm on a WRTA bus line, because, blah, 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 live near work, near downtown. Commercially, it's a huge difference. Like it's based on where their business is. My storefront is a different example. It's closer residential because I have to care about the neighborhood, but like all they care about is egress and access.
Here's something I wanted to bring into the conversation and ask you guys about is on the commercial real estate side. We were talking before this started. We were talking about billionaires, right? We're talking about how billionaires leave, and here's two examples, and we're going to get to see it play out. Like I like things that are predictive rather than argumentative, like what's going to happen rather than, oh, here's what I think, here's what it should have been. Loser conversations. Those are loser conversations because they're too hard to integrate.
Are you trying to say this whole conversation was a loser conversation?
No. Here's why it's a loser starting point. Better starting point is the billionaire conversation we were having before this began.
Okay. How do you improve what you go forward without looking at what you did in the past?
Steven's here to stir the pot, guys.
Here's how you're going to get
losers
predictably what's going to happen. Because you want me to have a different opinion because I just think it leads to divisiveness because if you can say, hey, look, at best, rear view to forward, you have to put them in writing because it's at least complicated.
All right. Listen, your whole argument is fallacious because nobody tried to change the past. We were trying to rewrite the future starting now. But go ahead, talk to us about billionaires.
Okay, so two of them that are leaving.
Steven's expertise is billionaires, by the way. He understands billionaires.
Okay, well, two of them are leaving California.
Which
one
ones?
His name's Elon Musk, and the other one, his name is Larry Ellison of Oracle. And, so they're very conservative in their politics, probably, and they're moving to Texas. So is Texas, where they're moving, going to be better off with them? And where they're moving from, will it be worse off?
It's closer to South by Southwest.
Yeah. So are those billionaires going to make the area they're moving into better or not? Or are they going to leave where the places where they're leaving, are they going to be better or not? What do you guys think predictively?
They're going to be better.
That's the difference where they live?
Yes. They're going to build businesses close to their home, and those areas will attract all sorts of jobs.
Or do you want to live where they're moving?
They'll attract all sorts of jobs from the top to the bottom. So there will be high-paying jobs that everyone will be upset go to people coming over on a visa from India, and there'll be bottom-of-the-barrel jobs that everyone will be complaining don't pay enough, but there will be more jobs and opportunities and businesses opening where they live.
Tesla's not moving operations, right?
No, but he's going to do something.
Right?
He's not just...
SpaceX is not like moving their launch facilities.
No, but
right?
one man is moving with billions of dollars down the street from you. If Elon Musk moves next door to you, do you think your neighborhood is going to fundamentally have some changes? He's going to open a coffee shop. He's going to open. Of course he is. He's going to. Well, that's an example, right? That's a low end example. He's going to do some business. He's going to open some business.
Do you think the average billionaire spends at home? How many days per year do you think the average billionaire spends at home rather than at their base of operate at somewhere in their operations that they own? I bet it's less than 100.
So you think he's just going to park his house in Texas, his zip code?
I think that there will be
back to California.
Construction short-term construction, right? That will definitely be part of it. There may be some long-term landscaping.
Okay, all right, but this is getting off track. I think that this is missing the point of the question, though. The point of the question is
the impact of a billionaire moving into your city is minimal.
I agree with Sean.
Okay. So hold on, because I think we just missed the point of Steven's question. Hold on, please. Steven's question is not specifically would Texas change. It's how does correct me if I'm wrong, Steven. How does a billionaire affect the people around him wherever he is? So if he moves to Texas, then the question stays there, then the question would be, what impact would that have? But if he moves to Texas and goes back and spends all his time in California, the question still would be, what impact does he have wherever he is?
Would you know? He's actually moving. He's still going to keep staying in Hawaii on his
Stephen,
private
did I get the
island.
question right?
No.
No.
Like
Okay.
you've got billionaire company. So I'll be specific. Billionaire company moves to Texas. Oracle moving to Texas. Is that area he's moving to going to be better off or worse off because he's moving there?
Yeah, that's
where they're moving there.
Right, that's the question. It's not about right. The question is a billionaire and their company going to affect the local market? Yes or no?
So let's say the billionaire brought 10 companies. Is that better for that state? Probably. If they brought one company, is it better for the state? Sure. If the billionaire themselves moves there, no, it's not going to make a major difference. He moved there because of Texas's laws around for Texas's tax code.
Right.
It's not better,
But that's not part of the question, really. The question is where do billionaires figure into this equation? The impact that a billionaire has on wherever they park their businesses it has drastic effects, and how does that play into all of this?
All right, so the industry that I have the most familiarity with in terms of how this race to the bottom works is the film industry. So the film industry's history has been essentially a race to dodge taxes from its inception, right? The film industry actually started in New Jersey and fled to California because California was cheaper, right? And then once it was established in California, it started fleeing to places like Vancouver, Eastern Europe, and individually each state started doing tax incentives. Michigan had one for a while. Georgia has one famously, Louisiana, North Carolina. And essentially what these industries do is they kind of fly in all their talent in, hire local people for a week or two at a time, and then leave, right? But what that actually does, it does actually increase some economic activity in that area. But here's the real kicker, and this is the for me the real crux of this, is that those companies, right, are always chasing the lowest number, right? And they will always chase that lowest number. And it's not about improving the area they're in. It's about chasing that lowest number because that's fiduciary responsibility of the company to do that, right? They would be against.
Why would they care about helping that community? It's not
Right.
their goal. Their goal, they are there to make money. That is what this all comes down to.
They're legally
And
responsible.
They're just going to make
chase that.
movies there and leave, right? They're not going to stay there. They're going to be like, boom, we're going to pop in, make our movie. We're going to go to, I think, what does it say? Georgia and New Mexico are the top three, right? So they go into New Mexico, make their film, and leave. Do they care about
Right.
New Mexico? Probably not. Are they going to build a? No.
Right, but here's what I'm saying is like Oracle, say, moving from California to Austin, yeah, they did that, but they only their company was only, I think 25 years old or so, maybe a little bit older. But they're we
All your chats will pop up on the
but
for the whole world.
My point is my point here is that that they're always going to chase that, right? And so at some point we have to, as a society, say there has to be some rules on this. There has to be some basic fundamental stuff here that sets the ground floor to prevent the inequality that we have.
So
or to reverse
I think
it.
that the inequality, the inequality, I think, is tied into this setup that you just gave us, Stephen, right, is the driving factor. It was the driving factor for me posing this question because, again, I had an inequality of knowledge, right? Starting off and say, how the hell do I buy a house? How the hell do I turn $1? I don't get it. I see these other people doing it. And so if, when a billionaire comes into town, right, what they're doing, hold on, hold that thought, David, I want to hear what you have to say, is they're creating opportunities of some sort. Now, it could be argued that they're not great opportunities, but regardless, it's the opportunity. This whole dichotomy here. We have those who have knowledge and opportunities, and there's nothing wrong. There's nothing morally wrong to turn, land ownership and responsibility, tie it in with dollar bills. There's nothing wrong with that. But where it becomes wrong and questionable is when the other side of the coin is a completely different conversation. It has nothing to do with land ownership and responsibility. It has everything to do with people like John Snyder 15 years ago, 10 years ago, saying, how the hell do I find an opportunity in this world? I can't understand it. And that's the inequality. Then and not to say that these people are evil, right? It's not a right and wrong, but that's the difference right there. These people are moving forward, and these people don't even know what they're missing and need access to those knowledge. I would say, if anything, if there's a human right, from my book, the playbook of my life, it would be, give people really the knowledge of business and trade and how all that works, more so than or in addition to, calculus and writing skills and all the wonderful things that we learn along the way.
So that goes perfectly into what I was about to say, which is education is the way to equalize this. If we want to equalize future generations, the closest thing we cannot. What it really does come down to is morality. This is the question: are they evil? Oh, side note: I am no longer talking about billionaires on this phone call unless it's directly related to real estate. This has been like 30 minutes of a tangent. Stop that.
Disagree.
This comes back.
The billionaires represent the opportunities. They're the opportunity.
I was just talking about
that was the argument. It wasn't. It might represent the. That might represent the opportunities. That was non-conclusive, and we didn't get anywhere with that. So we're not talking about them anymore. This comes down to morality and what.
We're going to do a follow-up call all about billionaires.
I'm in for that. On topic.
Well, Oracle's commercial real estate
Steven is definitely going to bring up real estate when we talk about billionaires for 20 minutes. On morality, because that's what it comes down to.
I told you there might be tangents.
How much of a responsibility do we have as people, or when we become landlords? Like, at what point does the responsibility to help others outweigh our self-interest? Is kind of where this ends up coming down to. At what point? Anyways, the answer is education. In my opinion,
I think that's a great one, because you look at like a property owner that owns, say, a hotel, right? You take a hotel owner, and in LA, say you own multiple. The
bottom line is the point.
Say you own multiple hotels. Does the government have the right to come in and say, look, during COVID, you have to take in homeless people? That's what you have to do. You own and you have to allow homeless people. Not only are you going to be forced to have homeless people, you have to provide buffets for homeless people in LA. So check one, you got to provide them a hotel room. Two, because they're homeless and you own a hotel. Because you own a hotel, you now have to have homeless people living in your hotel, and you've got to provide them food.
So I think hotels are like, it's more like if someone.
But you got to be careful with that, because it is billionaires that'll own them. So you got to be careful.
Let's say that there was a apartment building with a bunch of vacant units.
But this isn't theoretical. This is not theoretical. This actually happened in LA.
Yeah, the alternative though is hotels going under, though.
I thought you wanted to argue about predicting things in the future.
Well, no, yeah, and the prediction is: do you love that in the future? Do you want that? Do you want more? Do you want all hotel owners to be forced to take in homeless people in the future? Yes, no.
During a crisis, yeah.
Why not? No hassle. Why not?
Like right now, say here's my question to you, David. I'll ask you specifically. You own a place and you have tenants.
And I have 2 vacant storefronts. Do with that what you will for this example.
Okay. So you have two vacant storefronts,
which most people could technically live in.
Okay,
shower or whatever, but keep going.
The people that are living in your place now, there's going to be new places put next to those places that are better, but they're free now. Because government just made a decision that no, we got to make things more equitable. So now what you're charging them for, they can now get free someplace else. Are you thrilled with that?
So I have a saying. 1 second, because I actually deal with this mentality. The whole Here, I actually saved this for annoying hagglers. I've got a Google Keep thing. I usually screenshot to people with the edited November 27th, 2017. I should start noting how many people I've had to send this to. Anyways, if you can get it cheaper elsewhere, then by all means do so and shut up here. If you can't, then not only is it not a ripoff, it's a bargain, and you should be thankful for me not charging more. Copy and pasted for annoying hagglers. Sorry if it's insensitive and generic. Short version, no, I don't give a shit. This is like that's one of the benefits of the free market. People can get shit for free if they want. If it's not easy, you do have to go through a bunch of hoops. It's, you know, if people want to find a different apartment across town, cool, do it. I've got this available. If they don't want it, they don't have to get it. If someone else will.
Yeah,
but I'm just
Stephen,
I've taken it out of theoretical. If it happened to you, like
there are not free people. There are not people looking at my $1,400 a month apartments who are also considering free options. This is theoretical. But if you would like to continue on this tangent, you can.
So the alternative that you're suggesting, I think, Stephen, is an empty hotel and people living on the streets with no protection at all during a pandemic. That's the suggestion.
No, I'm not saying it's a scenario. I'm saying that's what's happening.
I know, but the alternative to that is putting people out on the street during a pandemic, an uncontrolled pandemic.
You know what?
It's probably problem comes in. It's not putting them out; they're already out.
No, it's
right. We have to take action to bring them in, which is a whole separate thing, but worth pointing out.
My thing, I don't really like talking about billionaires. I like talking about the homeless a whole lot more because I have more experience with the homeless. Because in working with the homeless, you know, people are normally homeless at the bottom because of choice here. Well, I don't know about your area, but you know, you go up to them, and more often it's more because I don't want to talk about billionaires. I want to talk about the homeless. You know, I think that the problem becomes at the bottom that they really don't want to be helped.
So I think that's actually a really good point. Since we've gone over billionaires, now we can talk about the other end of the spectrum, which in Worcester, the people who are homeless are, I believe it's 70% mentally ill and addiction. It's not by choice here.
Do they have a 211 there?
What?
Does 211 exist in your area? 211?
What's that?
Let me see.
It's like a services thing. It's a hotline they can call to get connected with social services.
We have a lot of different options for a lot of different people. Everything there are specific services for homeless pregnant mothers. There are separate ones.
We got services out the wazoo.
I've dated a few people in various housing organizations around Worcester. We've got really, really good services, and there's still a lot of homeless people. Those places are full. It's in those people offering those services work their ass off every single day. It is a thankless, unforgiving. It's not thankless, but it is a long.
Because you know the best question to ask a homeless person is that question: have you talked to 211? Because you don't need any. You can call from any. You can pay a call from a.
How about instead you give every homeless person their information? It's not like this. The reason I like talking about the opposite end here, when I'm going about what it comes down to is the mentally ill and addicts are a great example of what about them? Because we've talked about the billionaires. We're not worried about them at this point. Talking about the other end of the spectrum, the people who can't help themselves, the people who, even if they had the education that John and I are talking about trying to fix the world by offering, even if we offer that education for free, let's say this was something they were born in America, they were going to grow up.
And I just want to insert here, I think that all the homeless people who I know personally, I know the whole freaking gang of them, right? Because they all hang out down in the commercial district. I'm sure they've all been offered the 211 or the equivalent thereof, that they have been given it multiple times by multiple people.
But here's the thing: is most of those
hold on just one second.
Are,
I just cut off David though.
Oh, I was just going to briefly say most of the services that are given through 211 are not putting people in housing.
Yeah, housing is a very...
No, they're Band-Aids.
Right. Putting people in housing, the housing first methods are proven to work better than any other social help to homeless people. Putting people in houses, regardless of their criminal history, of their abusive history with substance abuse, it is drastically more effective cost-wise and outcome-wise to just give them a house, to just give them housing.
As an example, one of our more successful programs in Worcester, run by the Central Massachusetts Housing Alliance, great organization. For about 2 years, they will provide free housing for mothers with kids, with children, and it's a 2-year limit, and they check in every few months, and you're in buildings. So there's no drugs, there's no visitors, et cetera, et cetera. You have to, but like then along this 2-year process, they give you support. They help you find another place. They help you get a job. They help you build a resume. They help you with all the stuff that you were never educated on. I want to go back to what I was saying before, which is I don't know what we're going to call it, the most vulnerable, the people who, given all of the proper tools, will still never achieve the same things. Mental illness let's leave addiction out of this because that's a whole other set of dynamics. Mental illness. Let's say there are a lot of people who, as adults, cannot survive without people taking care of them to some level or another. Right now, many of those people are homeless because I'm sure we all know a lot of these people, and they are not easy to be friendly with. And frankly, at some level or another, it is not my responsibility to be their friend. So if we're going to talk about homelessness, how do we prevent that homelessness? And recognize that we're not just trying to say, let's create homes for mentally ill.
When Jesus said it best, you'll always have the poor.
You'll always have the poor. Yeah, John, you know what? It's interesting when I think about the poor, and I was thinking about the people that are poor when you deal with them, because what I would do is I worked in a church for 5 years, and so when people were homeless, they'd come in, and 211 seemed to be the best solution. I mean, what I like is, hey, no, that's not a great solution. Here's 4 better alternatives. I always work better with alternatives. When I thought about alternatives, I couldn't find any. So when I can't find part,
this isn't a solution for right now, but educating in the future. If the solution here isn't, so what we're talking about here isn't billionaires and homeless. It's billionaires and mentally ill. It's real estate and homeless, and pretty much in essence, as a landlord of any level, how much of it is my responsibility to make homelessness better for people who aren't me? Like how much?
Well, I think David, you try to push the billionaires out of the conversation a couple times now. I think they definitely have a very important place in this conversation. They have a large effect on the world around them, and then of course the mentally ill have a large demand on the world around them, and then in the middle is all of us trying to just suss it out, for these people and with these people,
really,
and standing on our own 2 feet. When everybody talks on the podcast at once.
Just because you are a billionaire does not mean you are mentally ill, and I feel like it's really fucking important to clarify that. Let's keep going.
It also ignores the tens of millions of people who could potentially become homeless in the next.
Do you know what, John? John, I do have to admit this.
Are working.
I was setting a trap for them on the homeless because I kind of knew what they would do, and it was predictive because unfortunately, there's some billionaires who contribute to 211, unfortunately. And that's why, gun to your head, if you had to come up with 4 better solutions than 211, and you've got to provide them to me in writing, and you're blown off if you can't, what are your 4 best solutions to replace?
Never answer that.
I don't ever want to talk about 211 again.
I never want to hear about billionaires' charities.
I would like to hear 4 solutions for solving that problem in your life.
And thank you all for coming to another episode of John's podcast. Nobody learned anything. Everybody interrupted everyone, and we only lost one person. We're 7 minutes past due, so I think we've got to get a move on. But we've solved precisely nothing. But to wrap this up, we're going to go in alphabetical order, and I want one solution in less than 1 minute, if you would, in alphabetical order from everyone in the room. And we're going to do it again as soon as possible. So by first name, Mr. Webb, you have 60 seconds to give us a solution for everything.
Okay. Education. If we educated more, so this is not a solves right now. This is a solves it going forward into the future. If you educate people, give everyone this. You can't give everyone the same opportunities. But if they are not aware that the opportunities might exist, they will never be looking for them. And most people are never aware those opportunities exist. So my solution for everything going forward: 1, education; 2, rewriting the tax code with some level of ethics in mind. ideally, I would love to replace the U.S. law with an algorithm, but that's for another podcast.
Ooh, all right. Well, I'm taking my 60 seconds here. I really don't want to because I don't have a solution, but I'll try. Let's look at the clock. It's 1:08. Here's some solutions. I'm going to second the education. Again, looking at my own story, I would like to see people made aware of capitalism, of business at a very young age, and as the strongest forefront of their education. With caveats. Morals, geometry, all the other things are good too, but that's kind of a blatant hole there so that people have those opportunities to move forward. And regarding the mentally ill, I'm going to go with Jesus and say we'll always have them. I think we're on the right track to continue to provide services. There's better things to do. And I'll second the whole algorithm thing. I look forward to the day when government is replaced by what I call government the app. The very secure app you download on your phone. Everybody gets to vote on all kinds of issues all the time. That's my minute. Next in alphabetical order would be Sean Jackson. 1 minute.
Please have me on that podcast as a counterpoint to both of those arguments. Because,
no, God, I really want to be rise.
The government as algorithm sends a shiver down my spine.
You're on the clock.
Okay, so here, basic thing is, if we're talking about the homeless, give them a home. There's plenty of excess housing across the country that it can be done. And especially in this crisis that we're currently in, cash payments are the way to solve the eviction crisis. It is the way to make sure that landlords stay solvent and that people stay in their homes. That we're not doing it is a moral crime. As far as a long-term solution to all this, honestly, it's increasing the marginal tax rate. It's making sure that businesses are not escaping their taxes by whatever means they do it, outsourcing, globalization, tax cheating, all of that, and essentially making sure that the social safety net is more secure and broader and easier to get into.
And Stephen, the final word.
Okay, I think I'd just ask everybody to put in writing their 4 best solutions that are way better than 211. Ask them to put them in writing so I can.
Diverting attention.
Doing it right down.
Come on, do I get my 60 seconds?
You get your 60 seconds.
Because that's what I'll do.
You get another 35.
Okay, I'd say ask them to put their better ideas in writing so we don't ever have to deal with 211 ever again. And 2, I think that using the vacancies in commercial real estate to help those that can't afford it is probably going to be effective because a lot of people are working remotely. You got a lot of extra vacant property. I think transitioning those over in a fair way, I think will provide a lot of help to people that don't have places. But I think asking you guys to put better ideas in writing than 211 because we don't like that one anymore.
That's to offer a lot more than you have.
That's it. That's all I got for the homeless.
Ladies and gentlemen, this was the most ridiculous hour of my life.
I'm so glad I joined.
I'm so humbled to have spent it with the 3 of you. In alphabetical order, David, thank you very, very much.
This was great.
Sean, thank you so very, very much.
Thank you.
Stephen, thank you so very, very much. Gentlemen, everybody watching, God bless and good night.